JB here, June 3rd, Tuesday, 8:57 a.m. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures in the red, although off the lows. SPY's about 592 here after yesterday's reversal, right? Markets were gapping lower at the open, hit lows at 10 a.m., reverse course into the noon hour, and then a nice, some buyers came in at 2 o'clock and boom, closed right at the highs. No big news or catalyst, right? So Fed Chair Powell came on for his prepared remarks at 1 o'clock yesterday. Nothing, no mentions of the economy or Fed policy. So that was kind of like a non-event. And then just some headlines, right? I mean, we had the manufacturing PMI, I think that was the ISM. I forget which data, but it was tad less than expectation. Nothing crazy there. And then reports that the U.S. is trying to get all the trade deals, at least get those in by Wednesday. Who knows what that looks like? And then reports that the U.S. and China are trying to get a talk between President Xi and Trump. Who knows when that happens? Hopefully this week. And outside of that, nothing, no major catalyst. And I was mentioning yesterday afternoon, yields are rising. The VIX was higher. You're like, wow, this is probably not the ingredients for the markets to be rallying, but that's what they did. You still see those headlines too. The Redfin report that the dollar amount of homes for sale is at a all-time high record or whatever that is, the most in 20 years, whatever that number is. The amount of homes on sale was up 20% year over year, something to some that effect. But again, I keep saying it's like a function of the dollar value of the homes for sale, right? I mean, if it's a whole block of an expensive sector, like I said, Miami or someplace in California, obviously, it's going to skew the number a little bit. But not saying to disregard things, but certainly, interesting headlines. At least this week, we don't have a vacuum of news catalysts, right? So some of the fear that we had a couple weeks ago with Japan, I mean, it's still there, right? We still the headlines last night too. You watch, their yields were going down, so that's a good thing. But if that starts to spike, certainly something to be aware of. But outside of that, I think we're set to get 597 on the SPY. So if you take a look at the where we moved up after the China U.S. agreement news, that was 594 and then 595. So I think that will probably be some resistance if we get up there today or tomorrow. Then once through that, I think 597, and then I think that 600 handle by the end of the week. Call me crazy. We do have to get through the JOLTS report at 10 o'clock today, and then we have the jobs report on Friday. So it's funny, they keep talking about yields going up, right? And weak economic data and inflation, but it's like all the economic data has been strong. And then you see I was talking about the Atlanta Fed GDP now numbers at four and change. So that's not a exact number, right? Who knows where that plays out, but you have to think it's going to be positive and strong. And then inflation, I mean, the PC data was at 4-year lows on a year-over-year base. So it just, you can write your stories and create all those headlines, but it's just, I don't know. All right, rants for other days. So I'll be watching that. And then on the weakness, we got all the way down to 585 yesterday at 10 a.m. So we broke through that 586 handle. Still looking at that's like a key area. Continues to be a spot where we hit intraday and then close above it. So as long as that continues to happen, nothing to worry about there. And then the yields, right? So yields upticked yesterday, and you take a look, the 30 years getting close to 5% again. So hopefully that does not come to fruition. All right, so now just quick individual names. I continue. When I say cautious, it's like some of the names I'm looking to get in have been doing nothing but premium killers, right? So it doesn't make sense to me to chase trades or to get in until I see a decent setup risk reward either on the premium side, so the calls are inexpensive on a risk reward basis, or the stock is starting to move. And so in Lemonade's case, I was watching a Friday, I missed the 40s, and I was watching yesterday morning, and the 40s were like 65 cents or so. And then finally, once it started to break out, I mean, here's a name that it's a high beta name, right? Once it gets going, it has huge outsized moves. A lot of that, and I put it on a watch list. I mean, if you heard my rants before on Lemonade, it's a divisive name, right? You have bears who think it's a zero, like seriously, they think it's a zero, and then you have some bulls and think the advent of AI and their business model and all that is going to make it a 300 plus stock and beyond. So because of that, there's a 30% short interest. And when either side gets control, there's outsized moves. So we saw that with earnings. I played it at earnings for a nice bounce, the last earnings, and then back in late 2024, huge moves, right? I think it was like 18, $20. I got like the 25 calls and I got the 35 calls, and a lot of those were up thousands of percent. So hopefully you get some kind of deja vu here. I just looked at the trend line, and I'm not saying this is be all end all on this name, but it looks like it's finally broken downtrend here, and I'm not saying it gets to $55 from back in November, but I do think if it gets some mojo, it's over $40. So the plan is, and unfortunately, the premiums kind of crept out at the end of the day, despite the stock still being up solidly yesterday, up nearly 7%, is to lock some of some of my strikes into cover costs. I might look for some more calls too if it has some follow through here today for more upside. So that's lemonade. GME, I finally updated the charts. And kind of, I keep talking about the moves, right? And I think this is kind of the setup that's happening. We had the move down after its earnings, then the bounce, and then I think more news, sell off the news, then a bounce. So I think that bounce, we're in the process of that bounce. I think it trades north of $40 in the coming weeks. 32 is the big spot. It breaks that today. I might look for some more calls to add to my July strikes. And then I don't know why I don't have Joby. Oh, there's Joby. Joby, disappointing, right? Because 3 days to the downside after its big gap up last week when I got those calls. And then I was hoping it would get over $8 because that's when I would add some strikes. It didn't do that yesterday. So kind of kicking myself because this morning they have news that there's they signed an MOU with a Saudi Arabian company. This company actually has a stake in Joby through TN, through Toyota. But outside of that, it's an agreement to possibly up to 200 plus of their EVs, their EVTOLs, right? The vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. So what that means, and to me, it's just like another possibility of revenue growth that wasn't baked into the stock, right? Possible revenue, and supposedly this is upwards of possibly a 1 billion plus in revenues. So to me, it's just not something that was baked in. So you have to think this is another spark that sends it higher. I wouldn't be surprised to see it trade back over $9 today. I don't know if I'll chase to add more strikes, but hopefully my calls are back in the green later today. And then this could set the stage for it to trade over $10 in the coming weeks, which I thought was going to happen. This hopefully just expedites that move, but great news. And, I think the stock is, as it gets closer towards the end of 2025, it's going to start reflecting, finally get some revenues, and they're launching 2026 at the start of the year. So I did. Anyway, I'm not going to go too much on the ramble here. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it's similar um, to Lemonade in regards to being divisive name, but it's almost like a biotech name, right? These early stage companies that don't have revenues, you have a lot of folks who don't believe that it's the hardest part of a company is getting off the ground, right? And here's Joby, which hasn't really technically, pun intended, got off the ground yet, but once they do, and you have investments, you have Intel has a stake, Uber has a stake, Toyota has a 15% stakeholder, so. I mean, it's all you look at. I'm like, how is this not trading substantially higher? I think it does at some point. So that's why I keep looking at Joby. W off the lows yesterday, still fighting for that 200-day moving average at 42.25. It gets over that, I'll look for more strikes, still holding the June 50s. Also, you have news. I think Vietnam, they're negotiating a deal. Hopefully that comes out this week. If that does, I think that's the next spark to the powder keg that's ready to explode. And then just other names I'm watching. I mean, I keep watching Reddit. I mean, I'm like a broken record, but I think one of these times when it runs in at the open, it's not going to have a sell-off. Like yesterday, it looked like it was going to break out, and boom, sellers came in like it has. It was like 2 Wednesdays ago. It was 111, and boom, next thing you know, it's 129. It's going to happen again. It's just a matter of when. And then hopefully being in the calls when that does happen. So, and not trying to trade that 20 times before it does. So I'll continue to be strategic watching this, and probably close to the end of the week. So the premiums are down, but still like Reddit for upside. MDB reports earnings tomorrow after the close. I'm still looking at strikes. I was talking about the rant yesterday afternoon. I was looking for premium build, and sure enough, the stock bounced off lows in the morning to trade into the green. And despite that, closing up 2%, the weekly strikes were all red. So that's not the way to do premium build into earnings. So I might just sit on the sidelines and possibly revisit Thursday morning. Last but not least, still looking at pool for some calls. Just sitting here at 300, closed exactly at $300 yesterday. Only monthly strikes, probably to 330. So, I mentioned I don't have the chart up here. I'll post in the room, but it's had these past moves of like 3-4 day rallies from levels like from 320 to 350, 310 to 340. It's just a matter of time too when this happens. So when it does, I want to be in some calls. Not only that, seasonal time frame for them, positive one, considering the summer. So that's that. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. I'd still looking at TKO. That one's not moving too much, so I'll probably pass on that one for now. And then take a look at RH. I mean, all the way down to 166, 167 yesterday. So, at some point I'll look for some calls to play for a bounce there as well. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.